The NFL draft finally did come. And I know that that's one of your favorite times and mine for the year. I mean, I remember you and I used to always get Mel Kiper's draft book, which is, folks, it's almost as thick as the Bible. I mean, he grades every single kid, even if he's going to be a free agent signing. He's grading probably the top, I'm going to say 500 or 700 potential players, Pete.
Right.
So it's a thick book, and obviously a lot of time dedicated to the likes of Shedeur, who I know is one of the people that you're going to talk about here, Pete. But it was pretty amazing to see how far he slipped, wasn't it?
Yeah. That part was incredible. It absolutely was, John. But look, first off, let's just go to kind of break it down. You and I were both watching the draft at different times, but the first round is always interesting. It's long, but I'll tell you what, all you got to do, and you and I have been talking about this all morning, the NBA Finals can't even come close to what the NFL Draft looks like for viewers. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of how important this is to the fan base of the NFL and of the different colleges and everything. And everybody feels like a winner at the very end for the most part. And every once in a while there are some out there that maybe some of the picks are a little bit questionable. But this year, the one that I think really did it all, John, was Seattle. I looked at what the Seahawks were able to do. They're a team that was kind of up and coming last year. Now the quarterback is gone. He's in Las Vegas. They've done a lot of things, but they did pick up Sam Darnold, gave him a heck of a lot of money. He had a great year at the Minnesota Vikings. And I think they wanted to make him pretty comfortable, John. And why do I say that? Well, they grabbed him another tight end, and he did a great job with the tight ends with the Minnesota Vikings. But Sam Darnold will be thrown to this guy Arroyo from Miami. I'll tell you what, John, 6'5", 250 pounds. The guy runs like an absolute deer. He has had some injuries, but he was their third-round pick. Their second-round pick was a kid that I thought was the very best player in the draft. It doesn't mean he's the best player for the NFL, but his athleticism and what he did last year at South Carolina is absolutely incredible. I mean, he's only just short of 6'4", weighs about 235 pounds, runs a 4.3 40, has a 40-plus vertical. I mean, there is nothing. He's a genetic freak, and he looks a lot like, and he's going to remind those fans of DK Metcalf, the old receiver, who looked a lot like that, big, fast, strong, everything. This guy's very, very similar to that, but he's a safety who probably could play just about any position on the defense, John. He could be an outside edge rusher. He could be a safety. He could be a linebacker. I mean, that's how talented this kid is and how much I think the world of what he did. It's not just a combine guy either. He's a guy who's a freak show. Then they got an offensive lineman from North Dakota State. All he did in his career, John, was played right tackle, right guard, left guard, and center. And he's an absolute freak. He's had 41 starts at North Dakota State. He's a big, mean guy who I think that the quarterback is going to like having him in front of him wherever they place him. And I think some of the other players, getting that tight end, I think is huge. And by the way, they ended up getting Jalen Milroe, who I think was passed up way too far, the Alabama quarterback, John. I really liked that kid. I thought he was athletic. I think he can run. I think he can throw the ball very well. I think that is he a top 10 quarterback? Top 10 quarterback, sure. Top 10 pick, no. And that's not where he was. He went all the way to the fourth round. But I'll tell you what, he is a really good athlete who I think will be a great backup to Sam Darnold. And that's going to be something fun to watch that and how they actually move those guys around.
Well, I'm going to, of course, hit my Bears, Pete. And at first, I was bummed they didn't take Tyler Warren. But the more I saw this Colston Loveland, you know, I'm sure half the crowd out there thinks his name's Loveland Colston, because how do you know what kind of names are these guys? But he's some kid from Idaho that goes to Michigan, and he is cocky, but, you know, if you can back it up, and apparently this kid has his whole career, Pete. So the fact that the new head coach of the Bears decided, I'm going to stack receivers for Caleb Williams. I think Caleb loves that. As long as these free agent offensive and defensive linemen work out for them, this will be an awesome draft. Otherwise, they needed either a big offensive lineman or a big defensive lineman with their second round pick, and instead they took a great wide receiver. This guy, Loveland Burden III, who when the coach was talking about it, they just said, well, what would you say about him? And he just said, stud. Next question.
I think the Bears did do a great job, John. They did what they needed to do, and it's something you and I talked about. I think a good head coach and general manager is going to go out and say, what do we need during free agency? We need offensive linemen. They signed offensive linemen. They didn't really need the offensive linemen anymore because they signed them from free agency of guys who've already proven themselves in the NFL rather. But now all of a sudden you get into the draft, you say, well, let's put more talent around him too. Let's give him more receivers. Let's give him an opportunity to throw the ball. We got our offensive line bulked up. Now we're going to get even more receivers for him to throw to. I think it was a great move. I love the coach, and I love the fact that, just to answer with just a couple of words, he's a stud. I think that sort of says it all.
Yep. Well, and then in the third round, Pete, the Bears got one of the biggest guys in the draft, not in terms of name. He's a Boston College kid, Pete.
Yep.
Not that they don't get noticed. I mean, you and I know Doug Flutie pretty well, and he got noticed.
Yeah, he got
and he's a little guy. This guy, Ozzie Trapillo, he is 6'8", almost 6'9", Pete, 320 pounds. That is a big offensive tackle, no matter how you slice it. And so that's going to be that kid's going to start, Pete, is my prediction. And they got a couple good free agents, but I think this kid, again, third round pick, they traded down and they still got the guy they wanted. That is something that Chicago rarely does very well, but I think the coach is already showing that he's smart as well as just a very good judge of raw talent, the kind that the Bears needed so desperately.
Next up, John, let's just hit real quick. We got to talk about this. Shedeur Sanders, everybody was talking about it. The guy didn't go in the first round. Everybody was shocked. Didn't go in the second round, third round. All of a sudden, he's starting to slide. And there was all this discussion, all sorts of crazy things being said. We're going to skip all that crap. Why don't we just jump to this? He went at pick 144. What makes that really, really, really interesting, at pick 94, Cleveland Browns, who did they take? They took a quarterback. It was Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. Now, you take him at 94, and Shedeur slides all the way to 144. They got two older quarterbacks that they signed in the recently, but before the draft. And of course, they still got the money that they've got in Watson. So they've got a heck of a lot of quarterbacks there. I don't know how this is going to literally work out, John, but there's a lot of guys competing for just a few spots. But Shedeur, I think, got humbled. And will he be humbled, I guess I should ask you, because we know what happens within the family. They have a hard time being humble. Is he going to be humbled now that he got picked 144 and they took a quarterback in front of him at 94? You tell me. You know a little bit more about him than I do at Colorado.
Well, I don't know that there were any players, Pete, that were more famous than those three players on a team. So in other words, with the Colorado Buffaloes, Shedeur Sanders, Shiloh Sanders, brothers, of course, and sons of Dion, as well as Travis Hunter. They were so famous that my daughter, who goes to the University of Colorado, said they don't even go to school. But not that they're bad kids for not going to school, Pete. They just do all the lessons at home because the crowds would be too big following them around campus and trying to get into the rooms that they're in. It's like that. Now, Colston Loveland, I don't think that was quite the same for him. I don't think it was quite the same for, Dart or any of these other guys. But these guys, Travis Hunter seems to have a lot more humility than, obviously, than Shedeur. I bet Shiloh probably has a little more humility too, because like me, he was undrafted. And, that's a deal for a guy that is, I think that kid's going to be a starter in the NFL, Pete. Could be wrong. I saw him play. I thought he was a great playmaker, like his father, not at the same level of talent as his father, and not running the same sort of speed that his father had, but nonetheless, a great athlete, and passed over by everybody. So and I think, and maybe we'll play it tomorrow on the show, Pete. There's a sage, I forget her name, but you knew her name.
Steele.
Yeah, she did a great job breaking down, is it racist? Is it prejudice? And she said, no, it's not. She said, look at, the what was it? 26 of the first 32 players taken were black. It's not a question of racism. It's a question of, is there the same ability to teach a player that doesn't want to be taught, that thinks he knows it all or whatever? I think that was a real concern. And also in the locker room, what's he going to be like? Because we talked extensively, you and I did, about, that there was a great quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. And yet that kid didn't do well in Denver because he decided he needed his own space. He didn't need to be in the locker room. Mm-hmm. He needed to fly on his own jet and all this kind of crap. That's not the makings good team player. And these guys, we need to see whether or not they can be team players. They've got the skills and they've got the athleticism. The question is, do they have just a modicum of humility so that they can actually contribute to a team rather than being an individual?
Yep. Well, it's going to be interesting, John. The draft is just part of it. Now we've got all the different workouts that go on along, and then eventually a camp and everything else. So it's still going to be, people will be watching those camp workouts over the NBA. So it'll be interesting to see.